Welcome, everyone. I am here with Joshua, and Joshua is one of our experienced heart and mind circle conveners, and also now facilitating one of the new Four Gospel Journey programs. And we're having these conversations so that you can get to know our facilitators and conveners and a little bit more about the work of Quadratus. And welcome, Joshua.
Thanks. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
So tell all of us just a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I am the son of a pastor, and so grew up in the Church of the Brethren
Mm.
faith experience, and kind of has like a good mix of an Anabaptist, pietist kind of background, and pursued ordination in that denomination as well, and served for many years in the church as in different leadership roles until I got my master's in counseling and then transitioned more into to private practice, but have
So
stuck with the tradition.
and was that in Pennsylvania, somewhere up in the Northeast?
Yeah, so grew up Pennsylvania and yeah, served in churches there and worked there.
So for our worldwide community, Pennsylvania is in the Northeast of the United States, near New York and New Jersey, which people may be more familiar with on the Atlantic coast.
hmm
Great. And were you more in that sort of New York side?
Yeah, we're like on the eastern side, like just outside of Philadelphia. So yeah, it's a neat place because you're close to all those like major cities and hotspots. But yeah, we were in the suburbs, so we got to just be a little more relaxed and not so busy.
So you transitioned from pastorship to being a counselor, therapist,
hmm
and
Yeah.
then how did you find Quadratus?
Yeah. So it was, we had gone through some pretty abrupt leadership changes in our church, and I had filled in as like interim during that time. And so really had to shepherd this congregation through a pretty difficult season. And um, at that point, I was also in supervision for a type of therapy called schematherapy. And my supervisor at the time, her and her husband kind of developed more into kind of mentors for my wife and I, and actually whose home I'm in right now. So
Mm.
it's kind of apropos. And so um, they, we would just be in conversation with them. And they shared with us, my wife and I, the podcast that you had done with Rob Bell all on the power of Christmas. And so that just that concept of darkness being given this like sacred role um, was such a stark contrast to what kind of has always been the Christmas story and how we approach it. And it just spoke to both my wife and I in terms of like recognizing like yeah, we were kind of coming out of this experience with the church feeling pretty drained, pretty burned out, needing something new to help make sense of going through a very dark time. And so like that's kind of how we got introduced to you and the idea of heart and mind. And so from there, we just kind of looked further into it. And then it was about 2019 that we kind of first made the connection and started. Annie was, leading the conveners at that time, and we got connected with her, and then joined a group in 2020.
And you were in that group in the circle with Annie, and then transitioned to being a convener.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think out of that group, there was six of us, including Annie, and three of us went on to be conveners. And so it's nice because as we get together as conveners in our group, in our monthly meetings, I get to see those same faces that were part of that original group. And so it's really helped cultivate, um, yeah, that support and connection with people all over the US.
So I know that now you're facilitating one of the four gospel journey programs, and just wondering what are you finding in the people that you're with, or what have you found? How is Quadratus speaking to people?
There's, as with any kind of like faith experience, I've like there are so many opportunities, right, to get connected with something, to figure out like your faith. And with those that have come into the different communities that I've led or in the current program I'm doing, I'd say it's the thing that like seems to allow them to just exhale in their wherever they're at in their faith journey is that the practice of in freedom and safety and welcome the other. That seems to really just give this container for people to not have that pressure to have to say the right thing or to respond as if they know how to be in this process, but that they can just be in process. You know,
Right.
they can just be in movement through whatever they're wrestling with. And, um, it's at first kind of an awkward experience where, like someone will share and there really isn't that like social feedback of like, oh yeah, or that's really good. I feel that same thing too. You don't quite have that discord. Um, and yet I would say that as you sit in that moment, like you can just see it in the participants' faces. Like they're experiencing something different. They're hearing themselves in a different way, and it just really does seem to help cultivate a sense of openness and safety to really dive deep.
Wow. It just said so beautifully about how our hope is that people will know their own authenticity in a deeper way,
Yeah.
but that the way there is the process of freedom and the
Hmm.
process of respecting self and respecting other,
Yeah.
in that incredible non-judgmental energy,
Hmm.
which we might call love,
Mm. Yeah.
that it
Yeah.
that it wakes up our deepest, truest self, and
Hmm.
lets us live in a more free way.
Hmm. Yeah.
So what I often say is that the four gospel journey, the four gospels are not the answer, but they are the way for each of us to discover our own authentic answer.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
we've been taught to use these books as the answer books, but actually they are the great process that we walk through over and over again to find and know our own authenticity.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. And it is incredible to see just how, all the different individuals, what that looks like. So like, when it's in some ways, right, like when it's the right answer, you get this sort of group think or you have to kind of fit this mold of what the answer would be.
Mm.
And as the curriculum and all this material that we're working through opens up that view of it being a way um, to move through life, to move through your faith, like it it looks different, and yet there's still that sense of connectedness because it's the same journey we're all on. And it's just really neat because there's like you're like, oh yeah, that is a way that this could be walked out. Like it's very enlightening too in that way.
So I want to thank you for your heart and for all the work and the way that you have loved so many people into their more authentic and better self. I just really appreciate your commitment and what you offer back to us. So from Quadratos, thank you.
Mm. Yeah, it's an honor. I mean, this is a lifeline for me as well. And yeah, it just really is. It's beautiful to be a witness to that opening of people's authentic self. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, and I'm excited. I had forgotten or I didn't know that this all started with that Rob Bell podcast
Mm,
on the Mythic Christmas, which has
yeah,
become sort of a classic. I keep hearing from people every year. People write me and say, "We've made this part of our annual Christmas tradition." I'm like, wow.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah, I believe it. Yep. Yeah,
cool.
that's
Well,
foundational. I'm sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
cool. Thanks, Joshua. Take care.
Mhm. Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.